Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast, as we are on the eve of the release of Echo, 5 episode event that we will be covering later in the week, I guess. I don't know when I'm doing it, but sometime soon. My name is Jordan. With me talking What If Season 2 is a guy who recapped Season 1 all, what is it, 2 years ago now? Jack, how are you today,
Yeah,
Jack?
doing good. And yeah, 2 years ago. It's hard to believe that, that was 2 years ago, but it really has been that long between them. But I am glad that this got a season two, and also we'll be getting a season three, as that's already been teased. But
Yeah.
uh, still, I wish this series would go on forever, but we'll see how far it goes.
Yeah, I guess just at the top, so I don't forget about it later. Rumors are season three is the last season. Um, I don't know who really. I just something I read. I don't know. I don't even remember who said it, so I'm not even sure if it's coming from somewhere um that would actually know. I think what AC Bradley, who's the head writer, is leaving the show. I don't remember if they were leaving after season two or season three. So season three might be under different leadership at that time. We also still have the spinoff of Zombies that's supposed to be coming at some point. I don't know. I do want more seasons, but what I will say, and this is something that'll be probably brought up throughout the season two talk here, is I want a little bit more. I want a little bit more from this. That I feel like we're not getting at this point. Now there are more episodes that go into different wild things because some of these episodes I really enjoyed because they were so different. And then some of these I was like, uh, I kind of want to go like I don't want an episode of like what if Peter Quill ate a cheeseburger right before Infinity War. Like I don't need that episode. Where it's like just a little change.
Yeah.
I want changes that might seem little that end up becoming a huge deal, like what we get in episode two, Yondu delivering Peter to Ego, and that creates this whole chain of a whole different group of Avengers forming at a whole different time, which I thought was really really cool. But we'll start with the with the first one of the season. I'm really curious on how they decide this, Jack, because we knew that one of these episodes was pushed from season one. And it
Mhm.
was episode four. What if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? In fact, that is the Gamora, I believe, that joins in the finale of season one for no reason.
Yep.
Um, why is that episode four? Why are we not getting that is just episode one? Do they reorganize them on what they think is most interesting? Because some of them do, like I hinted, are serialized. When we get kind of the later half, the last three are like you could not have moved those into different orders. And then from what we know, they already put out a clip of season three that is from an episode that was supposed to be in this season. It got moved to season three. And I'm wondering, just are we only allowed to have nine? Like, why couldn't that one have still stayed in this season if it's already done? Like, I'm really confused on how they are working out this show.
I feel like I'm not really sure why, but like some of the episodes make sense why they release when they do, right? Season two, episode three, releasing on Christmas Eve makes a lot
Right.
of sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think honestly, like it's just kind of you know putting in episodes wherever, except for the ones that require the actual continuity between them. But otherwise, like I think everything else is like it's pretty variable, and uh, I will say I like how they started off the 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 series overall, like this season,
Hmm.
and I think overall, like there. it doesn't really need. There's not really a way that makes sense to order it, right? Because
Right.
it's all just it's all different scenarios, different universes. So there's no need for it to have like a specific order, except for the more serialized episodes. But otherwise, like I think it's just kind of, for all we know, they could have just put a random number generator for all these other ones and just said that's how we're releasing them, because it doesn't really change the order that much. Uh, like, same thing could have been said for season one for the most part. Uh, I mean, the only difference is like some of these end credit scenes loop into each other, but not anything too strange.
Yeah, it really feels like the first four could be in any order,
Hmm.
because once you get to Captain Carter, that sets up the next one, right? A
Yeah.
little bit, and then especially when you get to Kahori's episode, and then that sets up the kind of like the last two with Strange. Um, I don't know. All right, so I guess let's start with what if Nebula joined the Nova Corps? And what we're going to kind of do here is we're just going to briefly talk about each one. We are not going to spend, you know, 20 minutes on each one. I hope. I don't want to waste my whole night here. But it's like we'll briefly talk about each one. We'll probably spend more time on some than others, and we will then share kind of one or two that we really enjoyed the most with the season, and then maybe what we do is kind of just take a minute and see like what we want from season three. Maybe not like what if scenarios, but like what worked in the first two seasons that were like, okay, I want more of this, less of this type of stuff. And then that'll be this episode. So, what if Nebula joined the Nova Corps? This was directed by Stefan Frank and written by Matthew Chauncey, and it aired December 22nd, 2023. And every time I see Matthew Chauncey's name, I just think of Chaucer. It's like I keep wanting it to be Chaucer instead of Chauncey. Okay, so for me, this one was just fine. I know a lot of people were talking this one up before I pressed play on it, and I think that may have kind of gotten me a little thinking like, oh, this one's gonna be really hype, and it wasn't as much. Um, because I felt like the what if scenario was a little weak. Like like it didn't track in the sense of when you're sprawling out the rest of it, some of these really track for me where you're like, oh, I could see this happening, like in episode 2 when we get to Star Lord thing. Like, okay, him getting delivered to Ego, I can see why then he's going to Earth. Then I can see why everybody's fighting against him. Boom, 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 boom. But this one, I do not understand why Nova Prime really turns evil. Like, just because of Ronan. You know what I'm saying? Like, she fights Ronan in Guardians and doesn't turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was a little bit that didn't track for me with the Nova Prime stuff. I really enjoyed the Howard the Duck stuff and like Korg. Obviously, like that team up of all of those people were really interesting. What else was it? It was like Groot,
Yep.
um, Korg, and and Howard the Duck. The other stuff I enjoyed too was the fact that we get Jude Law's Yon-Rogg in this. To kind of have like, this is what I like about What If, is when we get characters from like Captain Marvel kind of interacting with characters from the Guardians, which then are interacting with characters from like Thor, or looking at like
Hmm.
Korg and stuff. That's what I enjoy getting from this show, because sometimes these are characters you're not going to be able to get interacting anymore because of either actors that have left, or because it's not because this is animation, you get away with a lot more, I think. So I like
Yeah.
seeing these matchups.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I mean, I saw it. I think I talked it up a little bit to you as well, saying how much I enjoyed this one.
You weren't the
Uh,
only one, though. I'll
yeah,
say, like, just scrolling on Twitter, I saw people say, like, "This is what I've wanted the whole time" from like the first episode. But
yeah.
I had that feeling when I got to the second one. So
Mhm. Yeah, I liked the scenario that changes. It's, Ronan having a successful coup against Thanos and taking over all of this kind of stuff, and then Nebula kind of breaking away from that and then joining Nova Prime and the Nova Corps. I think that that's an interesting scenario, and I like the mystery that goes along with this. And I know a lot of other people probably saw it coming, but I watched this pretty early in the morning and was still tired a little bit. So maybe I missed some more obvious clues, but I thought, the first double cross was really intriguing, although, not too surprising given it's Jan Rog. And then after that, figuring out like the whole time about that, like Nebula kind of playing along with this the whole time to take down this was really intriguing. And I mean, maybe it's just the political science major in me that really enjoys this kind of scenario of like, I can see this sort of political intrigue that happens behind it, even if it's not like where did I cut out at all or
right after you said about liking the political science intrigue or like the
yeah,
political
I
intrigue.
I think the idea of the blockade trying to force Xandar like into submission and a leader turning because they want to stay in power has like a lot of relevance that get studied a lot in there. But otherwise, this one is really cool as well because most of the like original live action cast of these characters comes back to voice their animated counterparts, with the exception of Groot. I think is like the main one, and Nova Prime, of
Yeah,
course. But like,
no Glenn
yeah,
Close.
right,
No Glenn
yeah.
Close doing this.
But still, like that's pretty cool to see like a lot of these main characters coming back for it and voicing their counterparts because that has not been the case for a lot of major characters. So definitely cool. Also, like after seeing Nebula in Guardians 3, I really wanted to see more of her character when it's so indeterminate when we'll see her character again. So getting this was really awesome to see her, kind of go on this sort of mission, this mystery. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good way to start it out. And also, I will say, as soon as I saw Howard the Duck having a prominent part in this, I was like, yeah, Jordan's gonna at least like that part for sure. Like, because I
Yeah.
know how big of a fan. I mean, we're both a fan of Seth Green and like things like the Mass Effect series and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and
uh,
Rat Race. Everybody go
yeah,
watch Rat Race. Um no, yeah, Howard the Duck is great. Give us more of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know what they were trying to go for. With like, it's almost like people have said like Blade Runner esque. I haven't watched Blade Runner, so I can't really do it. But it's like a neo noir type story. The design for Jan Rog was a little off for me though. That I didn't recognize it was him like right away. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that's fair.
so I had to like look it up, and I was like, no, I'm right. Okay, it is Jan Rog. Because at first I was like, is this supposed to be like Peter Safranowic's character from Guardians? And I was like, oh no, okay, it's Jan Rog. But yeah, so that was good. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
I
This one
mean,
doesn't really come back up though, right? Like this, we don't really see. Do we see anybody ever again in this one?
I don't think so. I mean, we see variants of some of these characters in
Mm-hmm.
other episodes, but I think it's mostly like a self-contained like little story, which I think makes it, you know, kind of an intriguing one to be able to like pick up again without having to, maybe go and see
Yeah,
a bunch of episodes at once. So I watched this one twice.
the week of, or
And
you like spread them out, like.
twice the week of like right away.
Oh,
I
okay.
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So the one that I really enjoyed a lot here is the one that made me think like, all right, this is what I've been waiting for. Is this one? What if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? I read that title and I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. But it makes sense throughout the story. This was directed by Brian Andrews and written by Matthew Chauncey. Again, it premiered the next day, December 23rd, 2023. So this is where the Ravagers do take Peter to Ego, who then kind of shows him what he shows Peter in Guardians 2, but he's younger, he's a little bit more impressionable, but also he's a little bit easier to control. And he goes and is going to start destroying things on Earth. But he also has these great moments where he's just, being a kid on Coney Island type of thing, and doing the uh, like riding the rides, playing the games. But we get a great little Avengers team here that I really enjoyed, which is like Peggy Carter and Howard Stark being the heads of the Pegasus unit there on Shield, and recruiting Bill Foster, King T'Chaka, Bucky Barnes, who at that point is still the Winter Soldier, Dr. Wendy Lawson, who is Marvel. We have Hank Pym, Hope Van Dyne as a little girl. This was an Avengers team, and this is kind of what I really like about What If, is when you get these random Avengers teaming up and you're like, oh, so this would have caused them to team up a little earlier. And when you get people, again, like I'm saying, like Wendy Lawson, who you're only seeing in Captain Marvel, shows up here playing a prominent role, and she's interacting with Bill Foster and Peggy Carter and Howard Stark and, Hank Pym. And then getting Hank Pym, who's wearing the original Ant-Man suit from, the one that Scott steals, which is still the best looking Ant-Man suit in any of these movies. Really, stop messing around with this stuff. Some of these suits are the best the first time they come out. Civil War Black Panther suit is absolutely perfect before they decide to go like all CG on the Black Panther one or whatever. And adding the purple. And then this Ant-Man suit was so great. But yeah, seeing these type of things teaming up, and then having this nice moment with Hope and Peter. I mean, Hope is getting a lot more to do in these type of things than she's ever gotten to do in the movies.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, this has Ant-Man in it, so automatically it raises the bar in how good it is. On the Ant-Manometer, it's definitely at least a 9. But I also agree that this was a really intriguing episode. I was also thinking, Lego releases these minifigure blind packs, and a while back they announced that the Kang figure was being replaced. Makes sense that he was being replaced after everything else, but was replaced by Goliath. And I was thinking, like, that's an odd inclusion given that he's never appeared in anything. But finally getting to see him in this, and again, like, he's only appeared in one movie before, and never as Goliath. And Goliath's a decently prominent character in the comics, so like it's cool to see him in here and teaming up. And also the fact with this is like a year after the intro to the first Ant-Man movie, where
Yeah,
where Hank has had it with Shield and all of that, and is and he you can tell that there's that tension there. It sets up a very similar vibe to the Avengers movie, which is exactly what you kind of want with this, right? And I mean, you also get Thor coming in later on,
yes,
in a very similar way to how he shows up
in Avengers, yeah.
in Avengers. And I mean, I think that this is really intriguing, and also getting to see Peter Quill get some of the closure that he doesn't get until much later in the main MCU universe, right? It is kind of nice. And also seeing Bucky start to shift from being the Winter Soldier into the person we know more of today, earlier on with all of this. And I mean, and the final battle too, with Ego coming to Earth,
Oh yeah.
and like that is just super cool seeing that entire battle. And you've got Hank Pym, Wendy Lawson, and Peter Quill coming in the last second to kind of save the day. Really satisfying episode, and uh just really cool to see characters that for the most part barely appear in some of these movies, kind of getting to team up and everything. uh yeah, and also I did like the moment with Hope and Peter, and Hope like stealing the Pym particles to shrink down the
Yeah.
containment cell, and using the hairpin
And how
to
they
pick the
connect
lock.
with losing their mother
Hmm.
and their connection being music with their mom too. I thought was a really cool
Yeah,
touch too.
that definitely like a really cool way to link these characters. And uh you know also like seeing more of like the Black Panther lineage in this as well is also a very cool aspect of it. So uh yeah, I would love to see like in a season 3 these Avengers teaming up again or something like that. I think that would be kind of a cool thing. But we will see what happens with that.
All right, episode 3. What if Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? Directed by Brian Andrews, written by A.C. Bradley and Matthew Chauncey, and it aired December 24th, 2023. So this is where it's Christmas Eve. Happy is setting up Avengers Tower for a holiday party, and we get one of my favorite villains who arrives here, which is Justin Hammer. I'm so happy he got something to do here, and that they got Sam Rockwell back to voice him. Kat Dennings, I like her as Darcy. You got Kobe Smulders playing Maria Hill. Favreau is back playing Happy and turning into a Hulk type thing. Josh Keaton as Steve Rogers. Actually, I think he does a really good job as
Mhm.
Steve Rogers. He's got like the Chris Evans cadence
Yeah.
down pretty
I,
well.
I think I think Lake Bell does a really good
Yeah,
job
she
as
does.
Natasha Romanoff too. So
Um, Yeah, so and then you got Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye still. Mick Wingert does a good job as Tony Stark. I think Keaton nails it better for Cap, but like if you don't have Tony too long in the episode, I think it's really passable as
mhm.
a Tony
it
Robert
it
Downey
definitely
Jr.
sounds more like earlier MCU Tony Stark, I feel like, than
Yeah, like
later
Iron Man,
MCU.
Iron
Yeah,
Man
yeah.
1.
It definitely sounds like that earlier version of him. But
But yeah, so this one was all right for me. I mean, I think I enjoyed when everything like kind of like when he's doing almost like the Die Hard stuff more than when he is going full as the Hulk type stuff. Um but it was I mean it was a fun episode, not too much to complain about or even like I don't have too much to praise about either. I do like how look, Hammer's really only going to be a problem for somebody like Happy and Darcy. So
mhm.
once the Avengers come in, they shut them down pretty quickly. Which is why if people are still asking for Hammer to come back, like I am, he needs to be teamed up with somebody else because he's going to get pretty quickly defeated with any of these current Avengers, especially. But where he was really such a big problem for uh, Tony originally in Iron Man 2 was almost in the more political aspect of making deals and trying to get the rights to the suits, right? And in this, what I like too is that they take those Iron Man 2 drones idea that he has, and instead he hijacks into the Ultron bots. And that, the Iron Man Ultron bots that we see at the beginning of Age of Ultron. And that's how he kind of is able to, it's kind of like revisiting the idea from Iron Man 2 but putting a different spin on it, where Justin Hammer kind of wins, but he's using the Stark tech and not his own tech. But thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think this is a fun episode. The what if scenario isn't super clear. There's not a ton that changes, but even the watcher at the beginning is like, it's the holidays.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me show you a cool little snippet of how the holidays panned out in a different universe. Like that's cool as well. Just it doesn't have to be something that changes like a
Mhm.
specific thing that changes. And I think that shows that, this series really does have infinite potential,
Right.
like with that. And it's cool to see these characters interacting. I think Darcy and Happy play off each other really well.
Yeah, they never
And
really interact ever, right?
no,
This is
no,
it.
I don't. I think this is it. Yeah, and now it makes me wish they had
I
in
know.
Team
They're
Ultimate.
really good
Uh,
chemistry too, even though they're just reading lines.
yeah, it was solid. I really enjoyed it, and also, I mean, like the whole I mean, the humor in this was also really good. I feel like it felt like a good blend of it, perfect for it. An episode like this, I feel like you need that really good ounce of humor, and I mean, Happy transforming into as they call it, the freak. Uh, Pretty cool. At first I was like, oh, Purple Hulk, that's new. But I mean, it was kind of cool to see him, and like when he first breaks out and he's like, "Ooh, let me try punching this punching bag," and then just completely destroys it.
Yeah.
it it's it, it's pretty good, and I also like there's one specific scene in it when after Happy calls Tony, and then they start coming back, and then they all like jump into the part of the tower like where the Quinjet can usually land,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just like all in like Christmas outfits and everything like that. That's pretty funny. That
Yeah,
that's
wasn't
that's
Steve
a
wearing like a elf outfit or
Yep,
something?
yep. And Tony was dressed as Santa, I think,
Yeah.
still, and yeah, it was just really good. And then Thor coming in at the end thinking he missed the party. That's it was just a fun episode, and perfect for like the holidays. I feel like that's something that I might like, along with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. That's something that I feel like I'll throw on
Yeah.
you know uh every holiday season to watch, because it's a short little thing and it's fun.
I think my biggest issue with it is the design of Happy's Hulk form. I'm not crazy about his head. I think the color is fine and all that, but he looks really not like Happy at all. Like, you know how you can tell the Hulk is Bruce, like when
Yeah,
how they do it. Like, I really couldn't see him in it, especially he goes like all bald and stuff. It looked
yeah,
really weird.
yeah.
Probably my
It
biggest
doesn't
complaint.
look quite right, but I mean, still, I think it works well enough for like an animated type thing. And I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe if they bring it into live action, it will look a little different. Imagine Secret Wars; they're about to lose, and then he just comes in, and he saves the day.
um. So I just found this out too. I'm not too big on the Happy Hogan universe here in comics, but he does become the Freak in comics as well.
Does he? Okay.
Yes, is what they call him. It is a cobalt. He gets doctors try to cure him using a cobalt ray machine powered by one of Stark's devices when he is a desperately ill person.
Hmm.
Um, he is that was like in the 70s. No,
Wait,
sorry. Yeah, yeah, in the 70s, 60s and 70s.
you know what then? Props to Marvel for reaching way back in their catalog to pull something like this out from it. Like
I want to see what he
that
looks like
that's
in comics then, because I'm wondering if maybe the design issue I have is more of a comic thing. Um, not a lot of good. stuff on here. No, he is bald though, so it does look like that
Okay.
part of it is true. But he's not like purple. He's kind of like uh, I can't even describe. He just looks like a man who's bald and just a little more ripped.
Just looks like a man. Okay.
Just looks like a man.
I'm glad then that they kind of exaggerated it for the. I mean, because it's animation, so you can do a little bit more, and I think it's
Yeah, yeah. Here, let me
if
see if I
it is
can
like a one or two off type thing, right? I mean, like
for the
yeah.
people who are watching this on the YouTube. Oh, it's not letting me. Hold on. It's not recognizing that I downloaded this photo. Here, let me just see. I'll just share it, is what I'll do here. Okay. Bringing it up now. But this is the freak.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad they went with the design they did in What If. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a. I think it was a good change.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree with that now. Yeah. He looks yeah, I'm looking at the picture of him on what it like on a other thing right now. Purple Hulk is what people have been calling him, but I mean he's I just wish that the face was a little bit more like Jon Favreau's.
Yeah.
That would look funny.
That's understandable. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on from this one. What if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? This is the one that was supposed to be in season 1. Brian Andrews directed, written by AC Bradley, and it premiered Christmas Day 2023. This is the one where in 2012, instead of falling back into Earth, the wormhole closes and he somehow gets directed to Sakaar, which I thought was odd because not to get too nitpicky and actually and stuff, but the way that Thor and Loki get there are by going through the Rainbow Bridge with the Bifrost,
Mm-hmm.
and then they fall out of it. Iron Man just somehow just gets like carried by space wind, I guess, and then just ends up there.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
casual space wind. It just happens sometimes.
I was like, but it kind of looked like almost like they were trying to do the Bifrost thing again, where they just kind of gets dropped in there, and it didn't.
I think the most plausible explanation I can think of is after, launching a nuke at the Chitauri, the explosion kind of just like pushes him out and something
Okay, I
like
can
that.
take
Like
that, I guess.
I think that's like the one. And that's I think that helps a little bit with how that all happens. So there you go. We'll just say it's a nuclear explosion. There we go.
So they land on Sakaar. We get to see him interact with people like Korg, Gamora, who is still Thanos' daughter and is sent by Thanos to kill Stark because he had stopped the Chitauri. So he kind of gets a little bit of his repercussions for the nuke because he doesn't get to go back home. And instead of fighting each other, it becomes Mario Kart. And then the Grandmaster tries to cheat, but Stark is going to win. He teams up with Valkyrie. Valkyrie is then crowned king of Sakaar, and Stark tells Gamora to go pretty much do her own thing, and he helps her go kill Thanos. So then I guess we don't get any Infinity War, we don't get any Endgame.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go. He saved he saved himself from dying. Like
yeah,
he
there
did.
you go.
So I mean, in this, you could imagine like at the end of this, there's a world in which it's a little bit of a happier ending with everything. He gets to stay with Pepper and his daughter and all that. There we go. Like that's a nice little thought to think about with it. Uh, but like I think this was pretty good overall. I mean, any Jeff Goldblum is a win, I think, right? So that's good. You've got, I think, like this one, besides Tony Stark and Zoe Saldana, I guess. Yeah, that's a pretty big one, but it's a lot of a lot of original cast in there. Josh Brolin even
Yeah, Tessa
comes
Thompson, Taika
to
Waititi.
yeah, like you get Josh Brolin for just a little bit, but he was like, yeah, no, I'll come voice Thanos again. Like, why not?
Well, you know what? That's how I would be, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I
Because
mean,
like
it's a small little thing,
it's
right?
a
Like
small thing, and I know it would mean so much to the fans.
yeah,
And you're like, what? It takes me. Look, I'm talking 36 minutes about this. I could have said his Thanos' lines 20 times by now,
yeah. I
and
mean,
I'm getting
I
paid.
think I think overall, like this is a fun episode. Like it. I mean, I don't have many problems with it. I think it's overall like pretty good in the lineup. Again, like you said about Tony Stark, the voice isn't quite right. Like you can definitely tell, but that's kind of a testament to how iconic
Yeah,
RDJ's
this is the
like
one where
character is.
it stands out more because he's doing a whole episode.
Yeah. But
The other
I
one,
mean,
it's like a few scenes, and it's like, all right, that's great.
right. Getting to see though, more Korg, more Valkyrie. That's always cool. And kind of getting to see this entire world a lot earlier than we would have otherwise seen it in like Ragnarok. And I mean, it makes you wonder, like you know what happens in that situation if all the other events are the same after it, besides Infinity War and Endgame obviously not being able to happen. Like what happens in like Ragnarok? Like the just infinite potential with everything. Like it creates like a bunch of interesting types of scenarios. So I like it overall. I will say it was a little freaky to see melted Jeff Goldblum. Not sure how much I'm a fan of that, but you know. Uh, Also, I'm a little confused as to how he's still alive because I thought everyone else that got turned into the puddle like died. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but
What I would say too here with this is this is probably my least favorite of the season,
that's fair.
or close to it, because maybe because it's the season 1 holdover. um I'm not crazy about Sakaar as a whole anyway. Like I enjoy Jeff Goldblum in that role and Ragnarok as a whole, but I feel like putting Iron Man in Ragnarok doesn't really make me like it any better. And really the biggest complaint for me is removing the arena aspect to being the racing
Hmm.
aspect, because I just don't care. I mean, I have the same problem. Like when I was a kid watching Phantom Menace, the pod race, I just didn't care. And I know that shocks people at times because I do like Phantom Menace, and that's for some people the best part. But for me, I was like, all right, well, like whatever. I like it. It makes me it loses my attention a bit during this racing part.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can totally understand that. I think overall, like I liked pretty much every episode more than this one as well, but I still think it was pretty good overall. Like, I mean, yeah, yeah, it was good. I wish we had gotten to see, Gamora earlier, and also it adds like a lot more context to her appearance in the
Yeah,
season 1 finale.
it's
So
so
that's
weird that
nice.
like was it just not done? Like what made them push this? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean,
This was
maybe
supposed
it
to
was
come out
like
2 years ago.
maybe it was like a conflict with one of the voice actors or something that they couldn't get them in time or something like that. Maybe it was like they needed Jeff Goldblum to come back for it, and he was too busy doing his the world according to Jeff Goldblum. So like
Yeah, the show that you can't even
yeah,
watch anymore because Disney
yeah,
said we
yep,
don't
yep,
allow you to watch this anymore. We put
yeah,
money into
yeah.
it, now you can't watch it.
So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. But there must have been something with an actor besides for Iron Man, besides for Korg, besides for Gamora. It had it, so
If
that makes me
anything, I
feel
think it has to be the animation that took so long because usually they'll do the
maybe,
voices first and then they'll animate around it. So
maybe, yeah, but
maybe it just wasn't ready to go in those 10 and they're like, look, the finale is ready. People are just going to have to be like, oh, well.
yeah. So I mean, it. I think if I was to go through and rewatch this entire series, I'm definitely pushing this one like earlier on to watch. And I think maybe if I was to go through and watch it again with it earlier, that might make it make more sense and make me like it more.
I would love to do that
Yeah,
sometime. Like go back and watch season 1 and put this somewhere before the finale and be
yeah,
like chronologically, like, hey, this is where it's supposed to be. I think that'd be fun, but probably not anytime soon.
yeah. No, there's too much stuff to watch.
Yeah, I'm not itching to get back to what if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster. What if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? This is directed by Brian Andrews, written by AC Bradley, premiered December 26, 2023. This again, like you have Samuel L. Jackson voicing Nick Fury. This is pretty good.
Mhm.
You get this is the sequel to Captain Carter from the first season. Um, I'll say for this, I think most of this worked for me, but I just did not really care for once we got to the Black Widow aspect of it, like the KGB stuff again. I liked like seeing her
Mhm.
interact with like Steve as the Hydra Stomper and stuff. But then when it just kind of becomes like, oh, we brought in the whole cast of Black Widow now, I'm like, this is a weird turn that this story is taking. Um, but I really enjoyed the first half of this episode a lot with the continuation. The only thing I would push back because if people go back 2 years ago, I enjoyed the first Captain Carter episode. That was the first episode of the show
Mhm.
altogether, and I said this is cool. But I don't know what the Watcher needs to maybe look at different universes sometimes because he's like, I don't do sequels a lot, but there's not a lot of people like Captain Carter. And I'm like, you might need to change the channel then, man. Like I like Captain Carter, but there's got to be other things going on that you're like, this is interesting too. Like for the Watcher,
Yeah,
he's like, I don't do sequels. I was like, that wasn't even the best episode of season 1 to be like, give me a sequel to this.
yeah. The best episode of season one does get kind of a half sequel. So
Yes, it does. And that's like, I just thought that was funny. And so far, we had not had a sequel at all. But then this is probably my other complaint about the season. This episode onward are sequels. Not Kahori, but I'm saying like
yeah, I mean,
then you follow Captain
are they?
Carter. You follow Captain Carter into 1602. Okay, maybe not Hela, but
Yeah,
okay, like
there's still two in between.
yeah, okay. But you get 1602, and then you get the Strange Supreme intervened, and you get this one all in the back half of the season.
Mhm.
So he's like, I don't do sequels, and he's like, actually, now I do sequels all the time. It's a little bit of a switch up there. Um, but this episode in particular, I like I said, I really enjoyed seeing her with Steve, and I think again, Josh Keaton does a really good Steve, and it made me think that I kind of figured he was still under the control of the KGB here, so I wasn't shocked by that twist. But it still kind of hurt because you're like, not Steve. Like Steve is, especially puny Steve. You're like, not puny Steve. Like he's supposed to be better than this.
Yeah, I think like overall, this episode is pretty entertaining. Uh, I wait, hold on.
You're
Oh,
good.
sorry, my okay, my audio froze again. Yay.
Oh, okay.
But
I could hear you the whole
I
time,
think
so you're good.
okay, cool. Overall, I think this was pretty interesting. Uh, the first part is really entertaining, kind of following the same beats from Winter Soldier and all of that. Um, I do think like the part with Black Widow, like where they mix in parts of Black Widow, is kind of interesting, but I think it takes out some of the more interesting parts of that movie, which is a little sad. I do like, the like the creepy American town with the like that the KGB makes to disguise it. Like that's a cool setting. I think that you could see being like, oh yeah, I could see that being created in the Marvel universe and being used, right? Like that's kind of a cool concept. And I think it was pretty cool overall, and I like, the chemistry between Peggy and Natasha is great. Like overall, that's definitely a highlight of this episode. And I'm glad that they have that because it's really well done. One one thing that I did see some people talking about with the prevalence of Captain Carter in this series in general is like, you know it feels a little strange because Marvel have a new Captain America in Sam Wilson, right? And he's been put on the back burner for like 3 years. Like he appeared as Captain America for like 10-15 minutes. And then since then we've gotten like basically like 4-5 episodes of a show dedicated to basically Captain Carter. We've had her appear in a movie for like similar amounts of screen time. It feels like to Sam as
I
Captain America, but
I get
I
the complaint in ways, but I will say when I saw that complaint, I kind of was like, because while I'm not crazy that this is becoming the Captain Carter show, because
mhm,
I think that What If should be branching out into all kinds of crazy stuff and not going back to the same well over and over again. She's not like she's not in the 616. So I kind of can put that aside and say, look, maybe she's playing ball with them in the sense of she's Haley Atwell's showing up and recording the lines. We don't like I've seen stuff before with Sam Wilson's actor. I'm blanking on his name right
Anthony
now.
Mackie.
Anthony Mackie, who's kind of like, a little bit more blasé about his role and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it." Like he likes it, but he's not like, he knows that he's working in superhero movies. It's not like he's thinking this is like some like high art thing that he's really involved with. So I don't know if maybe he's just not interested in jumping into doing the what if stuff, um or so. Yeah, and Haley Atwell's probably like, sure, yeah, I'll record some lines. I'll show up on Doctor Strange set, you know. But
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest thing is that everybody thought What If was connecting with Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness because of Captain Carter. It's a whole different universe. She ends up dying, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then so it's like they used her for that just because they're like, oh, this is cool. But then they're like, yeah, but we use her in the show too, and then we use her again in this season 3 times.
Hmm.
3 times out of 9 episodes. 3 out of 8, because the one from last year from the one from last season's in this one. So if you take that one out, 3 out of
Hmm.
the 8 that they made for this season focus on Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
And there's just so many more fun ideas that they can explore. It's weird to go back to that well 3 times in this season and in Multiverse of Madness after already showing her twice in season 1.
Yeah.
Um so I think Sam Wilson would have appeared more without COVID. The gap in the show and Thunderbolts wouldn't have been as big without the strikes and without COVID. So I'm thinking like it probably would have been, and maybe with COVID they had harder times of having just like people show up for like a 5-second cameo because you have to get them in, you have to put them away for 2 weeks, quarantine
Mhm.
them, and then film something. Um, but so I can't put it all on Marvel for that. I think that Captain America 4 is going to be huge in that, and I do think we'll probably maybe even see him appear in Thunderbolts or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, but like
It just feels
it feels
really
like a bomb. But it's only
strange.
been two. It's been 2.5, almost 3 years since Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter
Yeah.
Soldier.
I don't know. It
We
was
used to
something
go
that
3 years between movies, so it's like it's a little
yeah,
different now.
yeah. But he was like appearing in a movie per year, like he was always in them, like so
I will also
yeah.
say I think part of that is not to spend too much time on this. I think part of it is the actors with Marvel's not signing them to 10 movie deals anymore
Yeah. Yeah.
because they don't want to be locked in for it. But when they were locked in, they're able to say, "Hey, film this Ant-Man thing for us,"
Yeah. I
And
mean,
now I think it's a little different.
it would have been cool though to like, since part of, the Winter Soldier movie is Falcon being in there, it would have been cool to see him, like even if it's voiced by a different character or
Yeah,
a different
yeah.
person,
If they
right?
had him
Like
show up
making
in
an
this,
appearance. Right, like, like the even if it was like at the very beginning, just to like make a nod to like the whole like on your left type thing. That's
like
so that
Nat's running with him, because they flip it where Peggy is the one riding in the car, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
Nat's running. So yeah, they could
Yeah.
have had Nat running with him or something.
Like I think that could have been kind of cool, but I don't know. That's a really minor nitpick, and I'm just itching for more Sam Wilson
Yeah.
content. That's it. Like that's the main thing. I'm a little sad because I want more of him because he's like he's one of my favorite comic book characters. He's one of my favorite characters in the MCU. He's in my top 5 Marvel characters. Like I I just wish there was a little bit more of him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the frustrating thing with the state of Marvel right now is and Disney as a whole, with them pushing stuff back to kind of, especially with Marvel, because they want to make sure that they're not um losing control of the market here when it comes to
Yeah.
the films. That they're trying to correct some stuff. They're trying to spread stuff out so that way there isn't fatigue. And now we're only getting Deadpool. So we'll have to wait a whole another year
Yeah.
as it is,
I
right? It's
I'm sure
February.
there will be a bunch of like series and special presentations, that'll pop up that, are going to be unexpected and announced like a month before or something like that. Like,
Maybe. I think they might cut down on the special presentations too. Even though they're cheap, I just think that they're like, hey, this is not. They know they flooded the market a bit, and for me, it was great. Right, for people like us, it was great because we're sitting
mhm.
there watching it. But for some people, they felt like it was homework. Marvel kind of validated that by making a whole thing called Spotlight, which is then saying, "Hey, you don't have to watch anything else." And it's
Yeah.
like, so you're telling
It's
everybody
Spark
that
Notes.
this
It's
is,
Spark Notes. That's what it is. It's Marvel's Spark Notes.
and it doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, Spotlight's going to go one of two ways. Either people say it's not important, I'm not watching it because you told me it's not important, or they're like, oh yeah, see, you know that all of this is homework, but I'll watch this one. And I'm curious to see how Echo does because it's 5 episodes dropping in one day, and uh, it's not. And also, they chose the wrong project for Spotlight, I think, because they're like, this is not connected, but it's also like starring Kingpin and Daredevil from the Netflix series, starring Echo from Hawkeye. I'm like, these are really connected. What do you mean this is a Spotlight?
I mean, the whole thing is like to be like. I mean, we're kind of getting off track, but the whole thing is to be like street level type, kind of separating it from the like
Yeah, from the big
multiversal
stuff.
stuff, right? Like, I get that. I get that because some people, we've both been saying this that the way Marvel's been producing stuff now is more like comic book runs where you don't have to follow the entire big thing. You can follow in and tune in for the event team ups, but like you can follow your characters that you really like throughout. And I think that's kind of an attempt to differentiate this and say, okay, here's a little area that you could follow along with if you like these characters. Here's a different place you can follow along with these
Yeah.
characters. So, yeah.
All right, let's get to episode 6 here. What if Kahori reshaped the world? Directed by Brian Andrews, written by Ryan Little, and it premiered December 27th, 2023. I'll just say it now. This was my favorite of the bunch here.
I
This
I would
was great.
agree. I would agree.
This is just so. I mean, I don't know. It's not even really like a what if, honestly. Like the what
I
if
mean,
is so
yeah.
so insignificant. It's Surtur destroyed Asgard during Ragnarok. The Tesseract crash lands in pre-colonial America, and Kahori stumbles upon this, and then her people and her that have stumbled across this forbidden lake have abilities, and from the Tesseract. So that's cool, but like it goes in its whole thing where I'm like, this was the most I stared at my screen during the whole thing. Like some of these episodes, I'd be like, oh, let me quickly check Twitter because this is not grabbing my attention. This one grabbed my attention the whole way through, and I was really, really enjoying the whole episode. But yeah, so and then of course it ends with Strange Supreme showing up and approaching Kahori, but uh I wanted more of this. This is the one I wanted a sequel of, and instead they kind of have a sequel of it in the finale, but like it goes so much further than what I don't know. Like I wanted to see what was next with the Queen, honestly, and Kahori, and not just skip right to what we saw. But I really enjoyed this episode a lot, and this is the one that I think I will revisit, and this is how I think What If should be. This is a pretty standalone episode that I can just revisit, and I can like show to my wife and be like, "Look, you don't have to have watched any of these other What Ifs. This is just going to be a good story about, you know, Kahori and her family."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought this was really cool. I mean, we're both history nerds, right? So like it's kind
Yeah,
of cool to see this kind of thing pop up in there, and I mean, kind of just like this celebrate like for one like. Immediately after this released, Marvel releases a ton of like promotional content featuring the actress Devery Jacobs, who voices Kahori, like speaking in the language that's used throughout this in Mohawk. I believe it's Mohawk at least that's spoken throughout it, and like creating content surrounding that. And I think that is really cool to see them doing, like expanding out who can see themselves represented in these like superhero universes. That's awesome. And I also think the entire thing being like an anti-colonial like future is really intriguing to me. And you know, I read a ton of stuff surrounding that sort of thing. I've talked, I think, when we talked about Black Panther in the past, like about
mm-hmm.
Afrofuturism and that sort of stuff. I love that kind of stuff and reading about it and seeing it represented in the MCU is super cool. And the powers are awesome. The characters are great in it.
Yeah,
There's great chemistry, and I mean, a lot of Marvel characters can be simple. Like, can their moments can come down to the Peter Parker mantra of "With great power comes great responsibility." Right. That's kind of what happens in this with Kahori just saying like, we've all been given gifts here, and we can save our people and save the world really
right.
from all of this. And like the end implies like they create world peace in this.
Yeah,
And
because Strange arrives. He's like world peace in a record time or something.
yeah, and I mean theoretically like it has a bunch of interesting implications because what does the world look like in that scenario, right? Like
And
I
that's
feel
what I
like
wanted to see more of, but they kind of skip to the end, right? Because like when we
Mhm.
see her in the future, that's the world that they say has kind of crumbled. That's the world that doesn't have Mount Rushmore, right? It has like is it Red Skull?
uh maybe I'm trying to remember now.
And it was like something about how like because of her like stopping, I guess, the colonialism, like there wasn't anybody to like I guess, prevent the. I don't know, like that. Whatever the Watcher was saying, or whatever Strange was saying to, I forget who it was.
Yeah, see, now that part I don't agree as much with because,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
the Americas are protected by a super powered community that are immortal, I don't think there's any situation in which, you
That's what
know,
I was thinking. I was like, it's a little odd, but
yeah,
he puts her there as a universe killer, which we know he's maybe lying about. I don't know. Like he was kind of like,
or that's like an alternate universe to her universe, right? I think it's like
oh,
a
maybe,
separate,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe,
I
maybe. All right, yeah, that would make
because
more
yeah,
sense.
because he brings in Peggy Carter to say this person's doing it, and you realize it's like being framed. Because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
she must escape from it because she gets recruited to help him, presumably at the end of this episode, and then
Right, right, right. Okay,
yeah,
okay, that makes
so
more sense than the other
yeah,
thing. But I wanted to see more of this post thing, but maybe they just don't think it's interesting because it is world peace, maybe. But um, I don't know. I thought that was such an interesting thing. But this is one of those episodes where you don't even realize you're reading subtitles the whole time.
yeah.
you know?
It's really it's really good, and also like we've completely brushed over this, a brand new
Character,
original
yeah,
character, like that might be like they've introduced like minor characters like that are
Colson.
unique, yeah, right, unique to the MCU, but like this is like a main super powered character that they're introducing,
Well, one thing
and
that was
I mean
interesting
that's kind of
too
cool.
is that the Tesseract thing, because it is the space zone,
Hmm.
it takes you from Earth and they go to this other whole planet, which they call Skyworld. And they're apparently not aging. They're, living. I wonder if we can get to that planet at some point because
Hmm.
I would quite like it.
Yeah.
But uh, no, yeah, I thought that was great. We're gonna have to get Kahori like comics, and we gotta get more of this. This is something you can do a
Yes.
spin-off of too. I mean, like this is
Absolutely.
this is this is great. It's
Yeah,
kind of
I
I
agree.
kind of actually hate that it's tainted by the Strange Supreme arrival at the end, because I think that this should have been that could have been a post credit scene, and you just have like a beautiful 30 minutes of this without it being interrupted, and it'd be perfect.
Hmm. Yeah, I really enjoy this, even though I mean anyone who's listened to me talk about Doctor Strange before knows I like Doctor Strange, and even I agree. Like, I feel like this episode, ironically, from coming from me, needs less Doctor Strange in it, because Kahori is just such an intriguing and unique character that really brings a lot to this, and you know the actor does a great job in this. You know, I cancel the zombies spinoff. You know what? Get us a spinoff of this instead.
Please.
That yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, no, this is the standout, and this is what if can be.
Hmm.
Like this is what they should be striving for all the time. I feel like I don't mean like creating new stuff all the time. I just mean like the emotion, the artwork, everything was on like a 10 out of 10 in this episode.
Hmm.
All right, and also Devery Jacobs is also appearing in Echo, which premieres again on the 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So she has a
Is,
role in that, not as Kahori,
oh, okay. Dang.
as a character named Bonnie.
Okay. That would be imagine if that was the case. That would be quite a turnaround, and then it would
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sense why this came out.
right before it. Yeah,
I mean, I could have seen it making sense. Like
well,
it would have made
because
a little bit of
Echo's
sense,
Native
right?
American. Yeah, that would make
Yeah,
sense.
right.
Yeah.
Like, but again, different universe. Yeah, whatever. Like, still.
What if Hela found the 10 rings? Directed by Brian Andrews, written by Matthew Chauncey. Geez, Brian Andrews did all of them. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but
December 28th, 2023. You get Kate Blanchett as Hela. You get
You
I
get
think that
Idris
might be
Elba.
it, right?
You
Idris
get Idris
Elba
Elba as Heimdall.
and everybody else's voice doubles.
Mhm.
But this one I really enjoyed too. So like one night I watched I think the last 4 episodes, and I started with Kahori. I went to this one, and I was like, these two back to back were awesome because I loved Hela getting like involved with the Ten Rings and seeing Shang-Chi. They said season 2 was going to start diving into phase 4 stuff, and they did. They started going into some of these Black Widow,
Mhm.
Shang-Chi, and I love Shang-Chi. So seeing like uh characters from that appearing with Hela and the Thor characters, like that was so much fun. I thought Odin was a little bit of a dick in this episode for some reason. You
I mean,
know,
he kind of is in general, in
I
in in,
guess.
in Norse mythology and in the MCU. He
Yeah.
yeah he's not exactly like perfect. He's definitely made mistakes.
I
Uh,
do think Hela's turn to good is a little too quick in this, but that's something that just happens when you only have 20 some minutes, I think.
yeah,
Um but I know I really enjoyed this one too. I think this was like the back half of the season worked so much for me because I really liked this one. Like for me, the season is propped up by Kahori in this episode and the Star Lord one. Those are my top 3, and those are the ones that when I look back at season 2, I'm probably going to think the most about.
yeah, that's fair. I enjoyed this a lot as well. I thought the animation was really well done. It was cool to see, Wenwu earlier on than when we see him in Shang-Chi. And I think like overall this is like really cool. And also, the fact that Talo is hidden even from Heimdall is kind of a cool little fact that didn't know I needed to know, but now I'm glad I do. And the whole thing with seeing the forest closing in on itself as she's going into it, like in animation, looks great as well. And I mean, yeah, I really like this, and the whole idea of um, achieving the freedom from control thing, and kind of uniting with Wenwu at the end to bring freedom to all of the nine realms after you know she had a hand in forcing them to not be free. But I like kind of the redemption arc in this, and I think overall I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, and her like appearing at the end to save Gamora's people when Thanos is about to like the scene from Endgame or Infinity War we see, like that
Mhm.
is again just when you're mixing some of these characters, but they all make sense. These are cosmic characters, right? That are
Yeah.
it just worked so well.
Yeah, I really like it. I think also the costume, the light costume and outfit, like
Yeah, the
that's
all
super
white.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is super cool, and I like how that looks a lot. Um, yeah, overall, like it was just cool to see more of the Ten Rings as well.
Hmm.
Just yeah, just building out more of these worlds, and seeing different like these characters pop up is always fun.
Yeah, I know you're asking for a lot of Sam Wilson. I'm over here asking for Shang-Chi, which we
Mhm.
still don't know when we're getting a sequel of that.
Yeah.
And by the time it comes out, we're going to be at the point where some of these movies are going 6 years, 5 years between movies. And I think that's something they're going to try to fix going forward too when they're looking at
Yeah.
this. It's like, all right, let's maybe, Iron Man 1 was a hit. Originally, I don't think Iron Man 2 was part of their build up to Avengers, but then Iron Man was a hit and they're like, all right, we got to put out Iron Man 2 and we'll
Mhm.
hint to some stuff. And then that came out, um, you know, uh, and really started kicking off a lot of the Avengers stuff. But they were kind of they had more freedom back then, I think too. And nowadays it's like Shang-Chi comes out and they're like, well, we already have this plan. Like we are already, and that's what like people will say this for phase 4 and 5 too, where they're like, there's no plan. I think sometimes there's too much of a plan compared to the Infinity Saga, which if you read the book about the Infinity Saga, there was no plan. They said, we're
Mhm.
building up to Avengers, that's it. And then uh Thanos was just thrown in there by Joss Whedon, who was like, I want to put Thanos here in the end credit scene. And Feige's like, cool, sounds good. They didn't know they were building to Thanos. And now I feel like they're like, well, we can't have Shang-Chi 2 until we're done with they can only make so many movies, right? There's only so
Yeah,
much room on the calendar. There's only so many production people that can assist them and
it
build the sets. I mean, it's they're limited here.
right. In before they make Shang-Chi get a special presentation this fall. That would be kind of cool if
I
that
would
just
take it.
popped out of
I'd
nowhere.
take anything right now for Shang-Chi. It's probably their like biggest hit, not money wise, but like maybe for the newest characters. And they're just sitting on it right now because then they were like, well, they are going to make a Shang-Chi 2. I believe that's what
Mhm.
they're putting um Destin Daniel Cretton on, because he left Avengers 5 and he's
Right.
working on Wonder Man and I believe Shang-Chi 2. But I mean, by the time any of that stuff comes out, the movie came out in 2021, right?
Yep.
I mean, it'll be 2025, 2026. It'll be 2026 or 7. We're looking at 5-6 year gap. And at
Yeah.
that point, what you just saw with the gap between Captain Marvel and the Marvels, it doesn't do any favors having a large gap.
Right. I agree.
Sequel should be 3 years. Boom. Okay. What If Avengers Assembled in 1602, directed by Brian Andrews and A.C. Bradley, Ryan Little writing. This was another fun one for me. This is, man, you get a lot of stars in this one. Haley Atwell comes back, Samuel L. Jackson, Elizabeth Olsen, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Mark Ruffalo, Jon Favreau, um, Paul Rudd, Sebastian Stan, Benedict Cumberbatch, Lake Bell. Not like the big star, but she is a star. And then you have
Mhm.
Josh Keaton coming back as Steve and Mick Wingert as Tony Stark. Again, I think he does a great job in this smaller role for Tony. I enjoyed this one. I was a little confused though, because they're talking about the incursion, which they don't
Mhm.
name, right? But it's
Right.
probably an incursion. But that a normal universe is mixing with something from the 1600s, and it ends up creating. So then when I see Happy appearing as the Freak, I was like, is this supposed to be the Christmas universe? I was really confused by this. Um, I guess not, because now we know that Happy was also the Freak in some comics. That it's like, okay, maybe they're just like, this happened in a few universes.
Yeah.
But I like seeing like Happy with the classic
The
mustache
handlebar type.
and
Yeah.
the
The
goatee.
goatee. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was cool. And then seeing these combined, I think this is the episode that Josh Keaton does his best Steve Rogers here.
Mhm.
They have that scene with Peggy, and they say about how they never get their happy ending, do they? Just like he did such a good job in it for in place of Chris Evans.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like the way that Steve Rogers gets there is an interesting one as well. Like the fact that when he's fighting Thanos, he
Yeah,
hits
hits
he
the
hits
time
the
stone.
time stone and then just gets teleported to another universe. That's cool. That's pretty cool to see how he gets to this time period. And I mean, I like all of this quite a bit. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang is in this, and seeing all of these characters just in a different universe, like different time period, and Loki in it. Hey, if people are sad that after Loki we might not get too much more Tom Hiddleston, there you go. There's a few more crumbs for you to see. But yeah, I think this is really cool, and it does add more to Steve and Peggy's story, which it I think is interesting, and yeah, I do think, you know, adding more of these incursions in is also pretty interesting, just because, we know that's got to be a big part of the end of this saga, right? So having those appear more and more is, I think, interesting and builds towards something. And it gives like the feeling of, continuity of the events of these what if universes to like the main line MCU. It gives that feeling of crossover between it, which is nice.
My biggest complaint on this one is the Peggy Carter part, because I think it is weird that that's who, again, it's like that's who Wanda, who is so powerful with magic, she's like part Merlin in this universe or whatever,
Hmm.
is like, I gotta grab somebody that can only like be super strong and throw a shield to save this universe here. It's like wouldn't you try to go get like another version of yourself, or another version of like a Loki or Thor that is like a god? It's just kind of like a weird thing. I liked when we started getting the interactions with her and Steve, but it
Hmm.
was like, we kind of saw that in the Hydra Stomper episode where they're like, they send her there, right, or she gets picked up there,
Right.
and they're like, all right, we kind of got this task for you here or whatever, and you're like, oh, I wonder what this will be, and then you find out they're like, we need you to save the world somehow. And if I'm her, I'm like, I throw a shield, like this is it. All right, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't figure this out for you, so you're gonna have to. But I did like Tony in this, when anytime she's saying like a futuristic word, and he's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
killing me with these futuristic words and stuff.
Yeah. I also, again, like, the implications of these episodes are interesting because Steve Rogers gets sent back to his timeline. So, but where? Like, where does he get
Yeah.
returned to? Exactly where?
Yeah,
And so does he just get punched by Thanos as soon as he,
that's what, like,
he's saying
you gotta
goodbye, and then
prepare yourself.
yeah,
You gotta prepare yourself where you're like, okay, I gotta be like geared up, ready. So as
yep,
soon as I come back, it's like, bam, I'm punching
yeah,
you instead.
like
Yeah.
or is it just returning to the same place, like at that time period, and like what it's it it's
Where
just
he shows
intriguing
up
to think about.
wait, he shows up in 1602 of his universe, and he's like, God damn it.
Truly the man out of time, Steve
Yeah.
Rogers. uh
And that's what is so, that's where they can kind of get away with this stuff, with that's what they're trying to get at with Peggy Carter, is that these Captain America and Captain Carter characters are like out of time a lot
mhm.
of times, so that they feel like they fit in at any of these universes, any of these times, so they kind of keep going back to that well. um what I'll also say is, do we have to call her Captain Carter? Why don't we just pull the trigger and say Captain Britain? She's got the Union Jack on. That is a Marvel character. Like, why are we
Yeah,
going with Captain Carter? Why
because they're
isn't
gonna
he
bring in,
Captain Rogers then? It doesn't make any sense.
because Captain Britain is obviously going to be the next big thing in that's 2020. That's the start of Phase 7.
I hope so. I
Captain,
love
yeah,
Captain
yeah.
Britain. Give me that.
That's immediately what's happening. They're like, you know what? We got to move away from America. We're moving over to we're
I
moving
used to play
across
as him in the Lego
the
Marvel
Lego
game.
games. Yeah. Hey, you know what? That had an incursion between or at least the
The
second one
second
had
one
the
did, yeah.
incursion between a medieval universe and the like
The first one
a
was the
current
best.
time
The
one.
first one was the best game.
The second one, yeah, was not as good, but
Because
I still
they
like
took
what
out the X-Men and Fantastic Four because of the Fox stuff.
they did. But
Because
I
that was
also
Perlmutter being like, I can't allow to market these things.
were the Inhumans in that game. I feel like if
Yes, they were in the
yeah,
first one
of
for
course,
sure. So I think they were in
yeah,
the second one. Yeah.
yeah, because if it was an Ike Perlmutter decision, they had to be in there. His favorites,
Yeah,
his and no one else's. But
he's like, I got the next hit right here.
I got the next hit. Yeah, but and then we get to the final episode though.
Yes. What if
What if?
Strange Supreme intervened?
Yeah.
Written by Matthew Chauncey. Again, he wrote like all of them. They
He
say
wrote a lot
AC
of them.
Bradley's the head writer, but Matthew Chauncey is like carrying this season.
I mean, oh yeah, he wrote most of it. Yeah, okay, never mind. I was about. It looked like there wasn't a lot, but yeah, no, he wrote most of it. Good for
This
him.
one was all right for me. I felt like it got. I kind of understand the complaint now that people have when they say the Marvel films or shows always end up with a big battle, because that's what this whole episode was
Mhm.
between her and Strange. I liked the interaction when Strange was being like, I guess, fooling her, because you're like, oh, these are the ones from season one, like they're hanging out, this is cool. It's like when you see like it's like when you sit down and watch a sequel or something and you're like, oh, I love their interactions in the first movie, I hope they have great ones here, and they did. And
Mhm.
then like then it just becomes this big fight where then like they're drawing stuff from almost every universe, and it was just it became a little much. We do get to see the return of Killmonger,
Yeah.
the one that had the Infinity Stones. And I know people are complaining about the Peggy thing with that. Um, I mean, the fact that Killmonger was able to wield them, I guess it's a cartoon, right? So then like
Yeah.
that she can, but it is a little silly when you have Endgame like Tony's like dying about to like wield these things for snapping, and then she's got it on the chest, plus wearing like Hela's helmet, plus wearing like having all this other stuff. A little OP. I wonder, this is gonna be a Funko. Put your money on it right now.
Yeah. Oh
Peggy
yeah.
with all the stuff is gonna be a Funko.
Hey, it would sell. It would sell well. I'm sure. I'm sure
Yeah,
it would
probably.
actually. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I thought this was an interesting one at least. Uh, people were like, well, why does Doctor Strange go back to like be to his pursuit of this? And it's like, well, did he ever really fully give it up? Because he's still possessed by literal demons throughout this
Yeah,
entire thing.
he
Like,
only put it aside, right, to save
yeah,
the rest of the universes, because it would have destroyed him anyway. Like it would have destroyed everything anyway. So
right. So he's like, I feel like it makes sense. Like he is legitimately consumed by demons. He or rather he has consumed them, and I guess in turn they've consumed him. You know, kind of like a parasitic relationship of sorts. But yeah, I mean, like, it makes sense why he's still trying to do this. It's the one thing that like drives him to insanity, and he's still trying to do it. Like, it shows how flawed of a character he is. Like, I mean, in every single one of his appearances so far, every portrayal of Doctor Strange shows him as this incredibly flawed character who needs to be in control, regardless of it. Like that's who he is, and that's what he's trying to do here. And I mean, I obviously they don't have a ton of time to explain how this whole thing works, but like it's dark when you think about it. Like it's literal just like human sacrifice. That's what he's doing here. Like that's fully what he's doing. And I mean, also it is good to see more Kahori, and she's OP. Let's be real. She takes out Killmonger with all 6 Infinity Stones like in a second. Like she's just like, you have the Infinity Stones. Let me just teleport you out of the armor. You're done.
she's like, I've got one Infinity Stone.
Yeah, I've got one Infinity Stone, and you're done. So that's
She
pretty cool.
really, I mean, she should have maybe came and helped the Avengers.
Yeah,
Like, go,
maybe that's who Wanda should have recruited. Yeah,
yes, there
you're right.
you
Yeah,
go. And then
that's who it should have been.
I would like it more if these last 3 episodes were Kahori focused instead of Captain Carter focused,
Yeah,
because I feel like that makes more sense.
yeah. So like, I mean that, but I think like seeing all of this is it's really intriguing, and I think the end is kind of like you could see this happening in like a Doctor Strange comic of sorts, where where like, this universe has now occurred without him ever existing in it, right? Like it's reborn, but he's just gone from it. Like that
Yeah.
feels very much like something that you would see in a Doctor Strange comic, in like anything related to him. Like I
It's
thought,
a
like,
pretty I feel like it's a pretty standard what if too. Like what if
yeah.
comics sometimes will have that like dark ending.
Oh yeah. I mean, like it is a very dark ending, and like, you know, I mean, it's intriguing. I think, again, maybe a bit too much Captain Carter, but also like Stanley Tucci coming back for like
Yes,
the
that was cool.
sl- the slightest bit of like of voice work, kind of cool. Because I sometimes forget, because that was like, now 13 years ago that he appeared in the
Yeah.
MCU, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, hey, what's up, man? How's it going?
And he's one of
And
my favorite characters in that movie. He's so cool.
yeah, I think like it's cool to bring those characters back that were, you know in a movie once, and just giving them a little bit more screen time. And even if it was like, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a Mysterio type thing from Spider-Man Far From Home, right? This illusion type thing. That's pretty cool, because you also get the sense of like, oh man, did he actually like teleport her back to this moment in time? Like, because I mean, the man has swallowed demons. Like,
Yeah.
that feels like something that would be within the realm of his within the realm of his powers. Like,
Right.
so that was a pretty fun, like, little part within there. But overall, like, this episode, the main takeaway I have from it is, I want more Kahori. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. She's super powerful. Her voice acting's great. Her, like, she has all of the marks of like just a perfect hero, like, that will do anything to save others, right? Like,
Yeah.
that kind of mentality. Not trying to be, the flawed hero that, sometimes Tony Stark is sometimes portrayed as often in the MCU or something like that. Just like a pure hero, kind of like Spider-Man, like honestly, very similar mentality, it feels like, between it. But yeah, I mean, fine. It's okay. I like seeing more Doctor Strange. I think it was an intriguing end to that character, and honestly, like, it ties off these 2 seasons, and maybe, that clears them up to not have to do any more Captain Carter stuff.
Well, that's
Maybe.
what I was going to ask, because that's what I was thinking. But then also, she asked the Watcher to show her the multiverse on her way home. So is she just going to be like, now I'm picturing like at the beginning of each episode of season 3, when you see Watcher in the sky, like she's right next to him, because she's like, oh, I'm seeing the multiverse as well. Or
Maybe,
like
yeah.
that, we're going to get more of her because he is showing her that, and she ends up being in these universes. Um,
I really hope it just means that it caps off this, because
I hope so too.
she's a fine character. I
Yeah,
don't have major problems with her
we're not
at
like
all. Like,
incels about it.
no.
It's just
And
like,
it,
all right, let's explore different what ifs, please.
it's just like, in an infinite number of universes, we don't need to see her in so many of
Yeah,
them. I feel like it's fine. Like, the sequel to like the first episode from last season makes sense, because they
yeah,
teased
yeah.
it, right? Like, that's fine. The finale of season 1, where they all unite, that's fine. But like you said, does she need to appear in 1602? I guess, like, to cap off like the finale with her being in there, sure. It's a convenient way for her to be able to get home as well. But
But she doesn't need to get home if
yeah.
they just don't put her in
Also,
it.
the Watcher is just there anyway. Like,
Yeah,
like, why is he? Surely he's watching this universe, right? Surely he can see this. And so, like, why doesn't he stop her? Because let's be real. He's like, I don't intervene. He intervenes too much, man. For someone who says,
that's
I
his
don't
whole
like to
thing.
intervene.
That's his whole
Yeah,
thing. I don't
yeah,
intervene,
exactly.
but I do. I'm gonna have a
Yeah,
conversation with Peggy right now.
right. So why doesn't he just, when Strange goes to talk to her and he's like, "Hey, you want to come help me out and take care of some problems for me?" Why is he just like not appearing out of the sky and being like, "No, he's trying to kill everyone.
Yeah, he
Don't
just
go
shows
with him."
up and he points at him. He's like, "Right here, officer," and he's pointing at
Yeah,
the rest of the Watchers, and the Watchers are like, "Yeah, get him."
like what? Where did he go? Did he turn? Did he? So he doesn't change the channel off of Peggy Carter for the most part, but then he conveniently switches it right there.
And
Like
yeah, at that time, he's like,
that's when he watched the Christmas episode. That's
yeah, he's like, let's.
yeah,
He's like, it's around Christmas time. I gotta go
yeah, yeah. Let
turn
me go
on this
watch
one.
that instead. Yeah,
He's
and then he comes back and he's like, "Oh man,
what
I
did I
messed up.
do?
I messed up here."
Yeah, it's like that regret you feel like when you put off doing your homework or doing housework. And you're like,
Yeah,
what did
yeah.
I do this
And
for?
you're
Why
like,
am I put this off? Now I have to
"Yeah,
do it on the weekend.
yeah." And then he's like, but then he can go back and be like, "I don't intervene though." So like, yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
wish
all
I
good.
could say that. Like at work, they're like, "Why didn't you do this?" It's like I just don't intervene.
I
All
am the
right.
watcher. I am the watcher. I take a sacred oath to not intervene. You have 27 missed calls.
You are
I am the
fired.
watcher. Yeah, but I'm the watcher, man. What do you mean? Like I
Yeah.
saw them go through.
I'm not the listener.
Yeah, yeah. I watched it happen.
Oh boy. Well, I just read as well that yes, apparently that episode with Stark and Gamora was not going to be completed on time, so it got shifted. Um
I wonder what part of it. Like, you know.
yeah, it doesn't really say. Brad Winderbaum said in 2019, I think it was, that they were already moving it over to season 2, or no, in 2021 before the season started. He said that one's getting shifted to season 2 cuz season 2 is supposed to be 10 episodes. But then we only got
Yeah.
9, including that one and the other one. So maybe they were
I
already thinking season 2 was supposed to have that one and the one that got moved to season 3. And maybe that one just wasn't done either. I don't understand, but it's supposed to be a like uh it's supposed to be Red Guardian
and Bucky,
and
yeah.
Bucky, which
Which
is fine. I'm like, I don't. I would love to see more like the Kahori stuff. Go out there,
mhm.
just go out. Like, if we're talking about what we want to see next season, I'm saying less Captain Carter. Show us more. I would actually say no sequels at all, except for maybe a Kahori
Mhm.
sequel. But like the rest of them, I just want give me new stuff that goes out there. When I look at the ones I enjoyed the most, I have 4 out of 5 that are like Peter Quill attacking Earth, which goes out there and gets this whole different Avengers team. Kahori, Hela, who's teaming up with random people from multiple movies, and then 1602. Those are the 4 I like the most. And 1602 is like, hey, I'm seeing the Avengers team up, and they're all different, like from different time. So that's the type of stuff I want to see going forward. And I just don't want them to keep leaning on the crutch that they have of Captain Carter. I want them to explore other things. And I would like to see some more what ifs from like, why don't we get something that's like, what if the other half got snapped instead?
I I'm actually I'm not like I don't know.
I mean,
I'm
that
not
one's not going
huge
to
on.
be great, but I mean, like, I would love
Yeah.
to see how they team up and figure out the time travel aspect compared to
I mean,
how Stark does and stuff.
the thing is as well though, like I can see it happening like because regardless of what happens, Scott Lang comes back from the quantum realm, right? Like that all starts. And also, you have Doctor Strange anyway. And you've got Wanda.
True.
Like so like I feel like, the magic is all there and stuff like that. I feel like you could easily manufacture it through that. I mean, theoretically you also have Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne not getting dusted, which also means then that Scott doesn't get stuck in the quantum realm, right? Like,
So maybe
So
that doesn't make them think of the time travel then, because he only thinks of that because of how long it took him. Like
maybe, yeah.
it was like an hour for him and like 5 years for
But I
everybody
mean,
else.
like, still, Janet was in there,
Yeah,
and so
true.
like I think I don't know. I don't think like I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's my number one on the wish list. Like, I definitely that is if they don't do that, then what are
I
they even doing?
yeah, I
But
wouldn't put
like,
it that high,
yeah,
but what I would say is I'm surprised they didn't do that when we're getting stuff like what if Thor were an only child? Like
yeah.
it's like okay, why aren't we getting stuff that has like that would have bigger changes to the universe?
You know what I think would be kind of interesting? Like from Civil War, what if uh what if Zemo's plot at the UN wasn't successful?
Oh, okay.
Right? Like what if T'Chaka lives and what if like all of this other stuff happens, you know? I feel like that could be interesting. You could explore more of that. You could get I think that could be kind of interesting. You know, you've got uh I'm trying to think of like other things like
I would do something with Eternals. I don't know. What
yeah,
if
the Eternals, you could
I don't
bring
know
them
what the
in.
what if would be, but I would put them somewhere of you know what if the Eternals intervened with Thanos? I don't know. Like
Yeah.
there's stuff where they were like the Watchers. They weren't supposed to
Yeah.
intervene.
What if Steve Rogers successfully lands the plane? Right? You know, like you could do something like
Yeah,
that.
they have that date, and then they grow old together, and then that's it.
And you see them teaming up and maybe throughout all of these
Yeah,
different
taking out all these different
events.
things.
Yeah, and like getting to take down Hydra after the war and all of that.
Oh yeah,
You
that'd be
know,
cool.
like that could be kind of interesting. And also you could bring in some like Agents of Shield type stuff. You could get more Howard Stark. You could get Jarvis as a human, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you could get all of these kinds of things in there. I think that could be kind of interesting. You know, uh I mean the thing is like I don't want to think about like specific scenarios because I feel like some of the ones that they come up with out of like left field that you couldn't even see coming
Yeah.
sometimes end up being among the best, right?
Right,
Like
right.
the Hella one. Who was thinking of that before this happened? Besides like the people at Marvel, right? And it ended up being great. Who was thinking about literally just Ragnarok happening and the Tesseract landing in a lake in pre-colonial America, right? Like I'm glad the people at Marvel did
Yeah.
because it ended up being like possibly one of the best episodes of like I honestly the best episode of the series like
Well,
so
the
far.
the thing that you have to do, and this is how they do them, I think,
Hmm.
is they come up with somebody like Kahori,
Hmm.
and they say, "What's the scenario here?"
Yeah,
And they figure out how do we get her the powers. All right, Tesseract. Okay, how do we do that? Do that. So a lot of times people come up with just the what if, but what you want to do instead is think about a story and then work your way backwards. That's probably
yeah,
how they get to stuff like Peter Quill. It's not just like, what if Peter Quill attacked everybody? They're sitting there thinking like, we want to have these Avengers team up against a threat. Who's a threat they can face? Oh, what if Yondu actually delivers Peter? Boom, great. Like I'm sure that's how they come up with some of these because it's so hard to just be like, what if, and then follow that thread. What you want to do instead, especially something like the Kahori one, where there's no way they were like, what if the Tesseract lands in colonial America? They probably came up with the character and said, we want to do something in the colonial times. And we want to focus and feature Native Americans. We want to create our own superhero that can be like our Harley Quinn that goes from the animated series and goes wherever.
hmm
And then they're like, how do we get there? And they just think of it and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we do this, and boom, the Tesseract ends up here and done.
yeah.
And I think that is the way people should be thinking about these when they're tweeting them out and not
Yeah.
just what if.
You know what? Now that Marvel presumably has like the Hulk rights, why don't we get like what could have been like World War Hulk and stuff like that.
I think they
You
can do
know,
that anyway because it's just animated. Like we
right?
kind of got that in the which one was it? The season one had one that was like the one where they lost its mightiest heroes. We kind of go through Fury's big week,
Yeah,
and we get to see Hulk and all that kind of stuff happen, and then everything kind of unravels.
right.
Um, but yeah, no, this was fun. I think I enjoy season one better, but I haven't actually revisited it. So this might still be when I'm thinking about these 4 episodes that I liked the most. I like them more than any of the season one ones, I guess. So I probably do like this one more. um, and really, like Kahori reshaping the world, this thing should be put up for awards. This should be like what if should be going forward, and it's what they should be known for because this is the
Yeah,
one of the best. It reminds me of sometimes when you get a really good episode of the Clone Wars and you're like, that was like watching live action Star Wars. You're like, this is like watching live action Marvel. This is great.
yeah. I think like the highs from the first season were probably for me like the T'Challa Star Lord one.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's also because of the emotional impact of
The Doctor
T'Challa.
Strange
Like,
one is what I
yeah,
remember being the
yep.
best one in that one.
I think that's also 100% up there. And then also Killmonger rescuing Tony Stark. I really liked that one. So those were probably my top three from that
I
one.
really liked the
But
Mightiest here, the one where they all died, and then it was like Evil Hank. I liked that one a lot.
that one was pretty cool too. I think there were some cool ones in there. I think also like there were a few that didn't hit as high for me.
Yeah,
Maybe like the Thor one is probably my least favorite in
yeah, it's Party
the
Thor. Yeah,
yeah in like the series as a whole. So I think the highs in season one might be higher, but the lows might be a little bit lower. Whereas like season two is mostly highs, and then there's a few like lows, but they're not quite as low as
yeah.
the party Thor one.
I think what season one had going for it in my mind is the novelty of it.
Yeah,
By the time you get to this, you're like, I know how the show works and how this goes. Boom, 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 and then you're looking for some of those different things. All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap us up here. We went a lot longer than I thought we would talking about this. But yeah, so coming up later this month, we have Echo coverage happening. Ron is going to join me for that. We're also going to have Ron join me for Ultimate Spider-Man. Issue 1 by Jonathan Hickman is coming out the 10th. So we're going to read it. We're going to have like just a 20-minute conversation about it and have a fun conversation about this new Ultimate Spider-Man where Spider-Man can be happy and have kids and a wife. And thank you.
that's a new one. That's
Watch them.
brand new.
They're going to kill her off. They're probably going to kill him
No,
off in the first issue.
don't manifest that. Don't do it. He deserves one thing.
So coming up on our Star Wars podcast, The Pod Awakens, it's related to this. It's related to What If. They have a thing called Star Wars Podcast Day, and it is February 7th. On February 7th, we are releasing an episode on The Pod Awakens. I might put it on here too, just because it is related. We are coming up with our own Star Wars What If scenarios. If we were going to have a Star Wars What If show, what would we want? We're going to bring probably like 2 ideas each. It's me and Ron, and then we're also getting Tommy Bechtold, who did the post Secret Wars Avengers draft on this podcast here. He's coming on to talk that with us if everything works out schedule wise, and that'll be dropping February 7th. And like I said, I might share it on here just because it is related to What If, which would be fun. Speaking of What If, my episode on Spider-Man Book Club, where I talked what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, which was the first What If issue ever. We talked about that over on Spider-Man Book Club, and JJ released a whole bunch of episodes in that week almost daily, I think it was as well, where he was having what if conversations with people. So make sure you check that out if you're interested in the comics or more what if stuff. All right, that's all my plugs. Jack, you got anything you're plugging over there?
I actually have nothing to plug, so
We
I'll,
have to record Behind the Dreams again.
yeah. Once that comes back, maybe after we end up going there in a few months, because
Yes.
we're each taking separate trips around like about a week apart. But maybe we'll have some stuff on there then to talk about.
Yeah, because there's
Even though
not
there's
much
like,
going on over there right now.
oh no, not really. I mean, hey, it will be great to see Epcot without any construction walls. That will be nice for once
Yeah.
in the last 5-6 years, whatever. It's been a long time for that, so I am excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to my trip down there. Can't wait. But yeah, there's just unfortunately not enough news going on to really dive into it all the time. But we'll try to come up with some good stuff too, maybe to do over there. But I'm also the man of 1,000 pods at the time too. So.
Yes,
But yeah, so that's our show. You can follow us on all of our social medias, which are in the video description below, because now we're getting the YouTube up on these on this channel as well. And then you can also contact us on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. That's in your show notes if you're listening to the audio version. You can send us emails. You can tell us your thoughts on What If as well. Coming up also this week on Elseworlds, a DC fan podcast, we're doing our Batman Rogues Gallery draft, where we are drafting Batman villains. We are not drafting Joker. Joker is that just felt like the obvious number one pick. We're skipping that. We're like, that's too easy.
Yeah, that's like a Wembenyama type thing. That's
Yeah.
obvious. Too obvious.
So we're not doing that. So it's pretty much we're drafting the Rogues Gallery. What we think the best Rogue Gallery is after Joker. So for people doing that, that's over on Elseworlds, which if you're listening to the audio form is on the same podcast feed as well. So you don't even have to do too much. But that'll be dropping later this week. Have a great rest of your week. We will catch you next time when we talk Echo.